Board regular town board meeting of September 25th. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Dennis Troy,
Present.
Councilman Tom Zergid,
Here.
Councilman Paul Valentine,
Here.
Councilman Sherry Towery,
Here.
Supervisor Chris Day.
Here. Would Esther Baylor please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. A few announcements. This Saturday, September 29th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. is the Orangetown Police Department's open house. Great for the kids, and all are welcome. Also Saturday, September 29th, from 12 to 7 p.m. is the Kyle John Boyce Memorial Picnic, hosted by my secretary, Kim, at the German Masonic Fairgrounds over in Tapan. Then Tuesday, October 2nd, 7 p.m., very important for those of you interested in the downtown growth of Pearl River and its success. It's our transit-oriented development / downtown revitalization community workshop. That'll be at Pearl River High School to run from 7 till about 9 p.m. All members of the public, business owners who have any interest in seeing what they want put into the downtown, or things they don't want, either way, come on over. The Pace University Land Use Law Center is going to be running that. They're conducting our study, which will be wrapped up by, call it mid-October, late October. So this is the key point for community input in the process there. Saturday, October 13th, the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory in Palisades is having their open house from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's free, open to the public. You can give a donation since they're not-for-profit, but it is free. Saturday, October 20th, the paper shredding event sponsored by our town clerk, Rosanna Sfragia, and the Rockland County Solid Waste Management Authority will be taking place here at Town Hall. That'll run from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then we'll be having a public hearing continuation for the HNA Palisades Premier Conference Center. It's a zone change to allow for a hotel usage on October 23rd at the regular town board meeting at 8:05 p.m. Then on the town board workshop of November 13th at 8 p.m. will be our 2019 preliminary budget hearing. And I think that is all the announcements. So we have a couple of presentations. We have first IRG, which is the owners of the old Pfizer property, which is now called the New York Center for Innovation, is coming in to give some requests and thoughts as to what they may want to see done at the property. So I asked them to step to the podium as succinctly as you can put it, if you want to go ahead and start off.
I'll just make some brief introductory remarks. On behalf of the applicant, IRG, my name is Brian Quinn. I'm here along with my partner, Lino Sciarretto. We provide legal services and counsel to IRG. IRG, of course, is Industrial Realty Group. They're a very large owner of property across the United States. About three and a half years ago, the Pfizer campus, which has existed in Pearl River for over 100 years, was subdivided, and IRG purchased approximately 200 acres of the campus. Pfizer maintains approximately 25 acres, and they are continuing to work there. They use it for research and development. Actually, recently, I know they've expanded on some of their facilities. But IRG is the owner of most of that campus. And, you know, in the 3 years that they've owned it, they have attempted to fill up a lot of the buildings there with tenants. They have a lot of highly specialized buildings there for pharmaceutical manufacturing, research and development, labs, things of that nature. And while they've had some successes, unfortunately, large portions of those buildings remain unoccupied. They did have somebody who was interested in space in Building 100. Building 100 is a huge building, approximately 900,000 square feet. It was constructed over the years, starting in 1940 and then in the 50s. And that remains predominantly empty, so they are looking at a lot of conceptual ideas. Bill Tipman from IRG is here to make a presentation, and he will give you some of the thoughts and processes that they've been going through. But I will caution everybody that this is purely conceptual on their part, but They have been approached by different developers who are interested in working at the campus, developing the campus, either occupying some of the buildings or creating new buildings there. And however, it will require, in many instances, a rezoning of the property. And I think it's appropriate, it's good timing with respect to the town considering TOD, transit-oriented development, or millennial housing in downtown Pearl River. We're also hoping that there can also be some additional zone change to cover the property over at the IRG campus to allow for other uses, including possibly residential, possibly a hotel, maybe a retail component. The idea is to kind of create a campus over there where people can live and can work. There's a lot of interest that we've heard both in the town, and we're very interested in the ongoing process with the Pace University Land Development Group and their review of the zoning and a possible new zone in Orangetown to accommodate that kind of mixed usage, which is very, very popular. The IIG campus is basically right between the Nanuet train station as well as the Pearl River train station, so we think that this would fit in very nicely over there. So having said that, I will introduce Mr. Tipman. He's got a little PowerPoint display. Again, I would caution you, this is all just conceptual, and it really is dependent upon someone becoming interested in, for perhaps putting a residential development there, or a hotel or otherwise. But thank you.
Good evening. Let me fire the computer up again. Timed out. As Brian mentioned, I'm with IRG, Industrial Realty Group. We are headquartered in Los Angeles. We own and operate about 100 million square feet. IRG owns and operates about 100 million square feet of space around the country. The company is headquartered in Los Angeles. I happen to live and work in Cincinnati. We have quite a few holdings in Ohio as well. The property, as Brian mentioned, we purchased in late 2015. We are in the process of rebranding it as the New York Center for Innovation. What I'm going to give you, as Brian said, a very brief, very conceptual overview of what we are thinking. A lot of the uses will require that the property be rezoned. And I'll show you a slide on that as we get into this. The property is, we own approximately 207 acres. It contains almost 2 million square feet. Pfizer, I think there's a lot of misconceptions regarding what Pfizer owns and what IRG owns. Our 200 acres, this is 304 Middletown Road is here. Pfizer retained about 25 acres in this area in the southwest corner. Our property is 200 acres that extends back to the Jersey Transit line. Of the nearly 2 million square feet on the property, approximately 900,000 square feet of it is in, or nearly half of it is in Building 100. I'll talk a little bit about that. There is a security fence that's required for drug manufacturing that separates the Middletown Road frontage from the property, the research and industrial type properties in the rear. It's, as we develop the property, we're going to be relocating that fence somewhere back here. So at the completion of that phase of the development, some of these the frontage buildings will be outside the fence and open to the public. Of the 200, we'll call it 200 plus or minus acres, is about 25 is in Clarkstown. The Clarkstown-Orangetown line passes through here. This again is Middletown Road. There are developable parcels that are in front, essentially outside the fence as it exists, and the Clarkstown parcels. Our concept, again, very, very preliminary, would be to develop a mix of uses in structures that are 3, maybe 4 stories in height in the parking area between Building 100 and Middletown Road. We have interest on the part of some partners and other developers to develop Building 100. The building is 250 feet by 700. And a footprint like that is not really useful for many uses other than manufacturing as it was constructed for. The thought would be to cut the depth of portions of the building down using courtyards and light wells, and thereby creating separate buildings within what is now the current building. Very conceptual. These buildings here, we have no preconceived idea what to place here. We're thinking it's going to be a mix of uses, offices, medical offices, some service retail, potentially hospitality, potentially higher education and research, and perhaps residential. Our initial focus is going to be to try to do the first residential on the property within Building 100 after we cut the depth down through some selective demolition. This is one of several concepts that we have developed to date showing how that building could be cut down with a corridor that runs through the middle and apartments or hotel rooms or office rooms on either side. This building, the building is a very regular 20-foot by 20-foot bay construction now. So if we left 4 bays in width here and here, you could have a very usable 80-foot depth. Again, the concept here shows light wells that penetrate down through the upper floors, and then the footprint underneath all of this would have enclosed parking and some commercial spaces on the lowest floor. This is a conceptual look, this being the frontage of Building 100. Middletown Road is here, and whatever these structures turned out to be out here could then create sort of a streetscape boulevard that would then connect with the street grid that is currently on the property. We're going to have to develop some concepts to update and sort of reinvigorate some of the facade on the front of the building. This is interesting. Brian, I told you it wasn't going to show up. I know. That's Brian's favorite slide. Uh-oh, what happened to it? From the roof of Building 100, you can barely make it out, but you can see the skyline that extends up about this high of Manhattan, which it's in this type of a project, it's fairly common to have an amenity deck on the roof, and it would be a very striking vista if we were able to do something like that. You can see Manhattan from there. The current zoning of the property, this again, this being Middletown Road, this being the line that separates Orangetown from the Orangetown portion of the property from the Clarkstown portion of the property. It's the vast majority of the property is light industrial. The uses that are permitted in light industrial capture some of the uses we would contemplate doing in our mix of uses. It doesn't permit hotel, hospitality, it doesn't permit residential. So we would need a zone change from these current uses to do that mix of uses that we're proposing to do. The frontage on Middletown Road, and I believe it extends back about 400 feet, is light office. The uses, the permitted uses in LO are virtually the same as the permitted uses in LI under the current code. That is our very conceptual, very brief outline of our current thoughts. I know we and the board and the planning board are going to be having many, many discussions on this before a shovel goes in the ground.
Great. Thank you for your presentation. Do you have anything else to add before we?
The only thing I would add is, you might say, well, this is very conceptual, but we wanted to get your feedback. We want you involved in this discussion. We want to hear what the town board is interested in. We've had some informal meetings with you. We've discussed some of these concepts with you. Since the town is going forward with this zone, perhaps an amendment to the zoning code to include this kind of stuff. We're very interested in that. We'd like to participate in that. And we're looking for feedback from the town. As I've often said before, I live here. I live very close to this campus. This is a key parcel of property in the town of Orangetown. You want to keep this on the tax rolls. You want to make it a vibrant use, and continue to do that. So we're looking to work together with the town board. If there's any questions, be happy to try to answer them at this point.
So the general concept is that assuming we come out of this downtown revitalization TOD thing with a zone of some sort, maybe like we have the PAC zone where there's new development and conversion things where we could apply it, you'd want to be sort of incorporated into a concept, whatever we create, the densities of that level, some adaptation thereof, whether the way the PAC zone is like new and sometimes converted, there's different rules. I think they're kind of looking for in the timing here.
Well,
What are your thoughts, guys?
I would say that this is not going to be the same zone as what's going down Pearl River. Conceptually, I don't think you'd have the same zone for what you're doing as for what they're doing downtown. I think you're talking about a campus that has some industrial uses and 200 acres that I wouldn't want to extend that zone all the way up.
No.
So I think your zone, we would have to work with you and Bill to come up with what we're looking for, kind of what we did at Chase. Something, we're just for that particular piece of property, because I wouldn't want that zone going all the way from Jefferson all the way up to the Nanuet border.
And the question,
I think there will be different uses, Tom. I would agree with you. Downtown Pearl River, there may be some things that are similar, but there may be some
I think
things that are very different.
Differences, yeah.
if it's overlaid over the entire property, it definitely has to be a completely different zone. And I would agree that we certainly don't want to extend it all the way to this property. But I think it's just a matter of how we figure out how to make it work, whether it's a completely new one. I mean, that makes sense. But
I mean, what's the height of that building again?
Building 100?
Yeah.
100, yeah.
It's
six stories, so.
Yeah, I
6
don't-
stories in the front and 7 in the
See,
back.
I don't see
so-
anything 6 stories
No,
going
there
in
won't-
Pearl River,
there won't
so.
be.
No.
So, so-
Right.
It may have to be a completely new zone, but
Yeah,
we could at
and
least
this-
learn the lessons learned from it.
Yeah, and this is a much larger piece of property, so, there's less concerns about buffering from residential areas, things of that nature. So,
Yeah.
yes.
I do think it's important we're hearing about this now so that it will come in
Inform
at the
this.
same time as we are looking at the Pearl revitalization, so we can figure out the number of units that will fit in the community. And so I think it's good timing.
Yep.
And it definitely gives us something to consider, but I agree with Tom also that it'll be a separate, totally separate zone from.
Any thoughts on All right here? Okay. Very good presentation. We'll
Thank you.
definitely keep it in mind as we move forward with the zoning adjustments here in town.
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, our next presentation is from, regarding the drainage pipe water diversion permit, to explain to us what, we have some stuff on the agenda related to it for setting a public hearing, if we are so inclined after hearing this, what they're looking for. This is over at a property in Pearl River. So, go ahead.
Good evening, Supervisor, member of the board. My name is Lino Sharetta. I'm a partner of Montalbano, Condon, and Frank. What we're here for tonight, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, we represent the developer, which is a two-lot subdivision, which is formerly known as the Krieger Estate, which is on Sunrise Lane in Pearl River. This is a two-lot subdivision that we had subdivided a couple of years ago, and with me this evening, I have Mr. Steve Griffin, the client. We approved the subdivision and got the one lot approved, and there's a house there, and so far so good. With respect to the second lot, which is currently vacant, one of the issues that we came across was there's this 24-inch pre-existing stormwater pipe that runs through the property into a ditch, and could be a backyard, if you will, okay? So, you know, it's not the most ideal place for this stormwater line, but it was pre-existing when we looked at this property. And the thought was, well, maybe we can develop a single-family home, you know, near the pipe and see if we can get a variance. Well, our first application with the planning board, we had our home within less than 15 feet from that existing 24-inch stormwater line. Some of the comments that we got back from building and planning and DEME was that the house as it was situated, the proposed house, was too close to that line. They wanted it to be at least 15 feet away from that 24-inch line. So one of the thoughts and one of the recommendations were to relocate that stormwater line away from the home and someplace else in that property and divert the stormwater in another location. So we took those comments, we went back, and what's kind of unusual is that your code under Chapter 41 has this unique provision where the town board has to approve any water diversion in your code. So it's not an application that you get regularly, I will say that, because I guess the last one that you had done was back in 2003, from what I saw. So we're looking to relocate this existing 24-inch line and replacing it with a 36-inch line, about 92 feet in length on the property, away from the home, which will get rid of that existing ditch area that's there in the yard. And what we'll do is we're going to be creating a riprap. So it'll be a pipe into the riprap, and what we'll do is we're going to have our engineering people look at it, and we're going to work closely with the planning board, DEME, and make sure that this concept works. But we're here because this needs to get referred to the planning board and back to you when we're ready to get approved for the actual permit, which is issued by the town clerk. So that's why we're here.
Great, thank you. Any questions regarding this? So we have item number 24 under new business is setting a public hearing for this process. So we wouldn't make any decisions whether we want it yet, just whether we want to hear and have a hearing. So any thoughts or questions or commentary regarding this, Jerry?
Yeah, I just would await the engineer's report, because down in Cherry Brook Park, we have the same problem with the pipes that are going in. If it's going to cause a problem downstream or down the road, that can't be, obviously. It would have to correct the problem to where it's not affecting anybody else.
Right, and we're prepared to obviously work with the town to make sure those calculations are correct. But again, what we did, once we found out that the town had wanted this pipe relocated, we had Department of Highway come out, we looked at the site, and they thought it would be a good idea at least to get this thing relocated so it's away from the house, because ultimately, once we hopefully get this house approved, the town's going to want an easement for that stormwater line. So should the town have to make any repairs, you're away from the residents, and it just makes it, we think, a better alternative. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, my client is here. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much, Lena.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Relocate briefly for the budget presentation. Gentlemen, Having taken office in January, I'm pleased to present to the town board the first proposed budget of my administration. I want to thank my finance director, Jeff Bensick, my confidential assistant, Amanda Highland, all of the department heads and other employees who participated in this process, and the town board for their input at our previous special town board meeting for the budget, which was incorporated. As a factor of it being my first budget, my stated goal of restructuring government for the future through bottom-up analysis and the intense budgetary pressure of 2 new employee contracts, the process to develop this budget was a long and arduous one, with far higher levels of detail required than in previous years. However, that level of detail is what allowed us to effectively analyze the town's needs and how to fit them within the constraints of fiscal responsibility. After years of working without a contract and ongoing negotiations, the town and the CSEA came to terms on a new contract in December of 2017, and the town and the PBA came to terms on a new contract in January of this year. These contracts provide for 2% and 2.5% per year annual pay raises, respectively. However, they were retroactive to the date of the last contract ended in each case, 2017 for the CSEA and 2016 for the PBA. In all the interceding budgets, these anticipated raises were not budgeted for. Though the likely liability was always noted per legal standards, no cash was ever allocated to pay for them, and no changes were made in the structure or operations of the town in order to create the budgetary space these raises would eat up in any of the previous budgets presented by the prior administration. As such, not only was over $1.4 million paid out of fund balance in a one-time expense to pay those back raises, the 2019 budget faced an increase of 10.3% in police salaries and 6.6% in other salaries over the 2018 budget, nearly $2.3 million in total, a 9% increase in salaries when averaged across the organization. This 9% increase in salaries alone would have created a 4.3% tax hike in this year's budget if direct action was not taken to avoid it. Having been made aware of this reality in January, I realized that there would be no way to account for these raises without forcefully attacking the goal of governmental restructuring to save money and increase efficiency. We would have to do in a single year what otherwise could have been spread over many, and I would not do anything that would result in someone being laid off. First, in February, I wrote and implemented a policy memorandum that required all vacancies that might occur to receive approval from my office or from the town board as necessary before filling them, with department heads providing detailed analysis of the duties of and need for the position. Previously, positions were automatically filled once they became vacant. Next, I brought to the town board, which we unanimously passed, a retirement incentive program, which encouraged employees who are already eligible for retirement to take it by providing a cash payment based on the number of years they had in service. This popular retirement incentive, which was taken by 12 long-serving employees, all of whom will be greatly missed, created space within which to operate when joined with the 8 vacancies created by the other policy going into this budget season. With a focus on increasing individual productivity, the town has implemented several key labor-saving technologies designed to allow our employees to emulate the modern private sector by doing more with less. The solution to problems was no longer going to be to throw more personnel at it. From the finally ready telematics to remotely monitor our sewer plant and other assets in that department, to the Verizon Fleet Telematics, which relays important vehicle diagnostics to maintenance, to a growing and continued rollout of Laserfiche, a document management / digitization platform that is workflow and forms for almost everything our town government does, to new modern systems for violations, permits, and maintenance in our building, fire prevention, highway, maintenance, and environmental management departments that will be implemented by the end of the year, we will have shaved likely thousands of personnel hours from our employees' collective workload. Finally, we have looked at increasing shared services and positions between departments, allowing employees to do the same job where and when it's needed, as opposed to just being at the same desk regardless of workload. This budget includes sharing one less than full-time employee among 3 departments, and I will continue to work with our CSEA leadership to build new and more flexible job descriptions to allow for such arrangements to increase in the future. The end result of this forward-looking preparation to move towards modern technology and governmental structure is that of the 20 total vacancies, 14 were eliminated or a lower position was eliminated, with the vacant one being filled via promotion, which in turn allowed us to address and wipe out the impact of those multiple years of pay raises hitting at once. The remaining 6, still being necessary at this time, were kept and will be filled. In order to allow departments to address the remaining workload that often was slightly more than their total number of full-time employees remaining could handle, but not enough to justify more full-time employees, many departments saw increases in their budgets for part-time employees and/or overtime, which still resulted in substantial net savings to the taxpayer. Moving on, as we continue to analyze ways to improve the town's fiscal health, I directed a full review of our banking in the town, as it appeared that our interest rates were extremely low. The result of this was that new banking agreements with new local banks drove an increase in interest earnings from $275,000 in 2018 to a projected $787,500 in the 2019 budget. Further, we have continued to see increases in building permit fees as a growing economy has generated a massive increase in applicants, with a projected 2018 actual building permit revenue of $3.8 million in this year, as opposed to the original 2018 budgeted projections of $1.45 million. As such, we are conservatively projecting 2019 building permit revenue to be $2.3 million. A portion of this success beyond an improved economy was the reevaluation of our fee schedule conducted by the building department in the beginning of this year, which we approved and which brought us more in line with our neighboring towns. Additionally, film permitting revenue has jumped massively following a tapering off in recent years. With just $75,000 projected in film revenue for 2018, we are on pace for $340,000 in the actual year 2018, and our projections for 2029 reflect that number. We expect there to be substantial upside to this number with the recently adopted changes in our town code for filming and the hiring of economic development and tourism coordinator. Finally, we have seen what had been substantial year-over-year growth in workers' compensation, medical, and retirement costs finally drop to more reasonable levels in 2019, with our projectors workers' compensation spend be more in line with reality after years of playing catch-up. Only 8% increase in 2019 versus a 20% increase in 2018. And the reductions in our total headcount and increased contributions to healthcare by our employees stemming what had been a relentless tide of increased costs in those two areas over the past several years, with changes of 9% in healthcare and actually a drop of 3% in retirement costs in 2019, as opposed to a 10% increase in healthcare and a 2% increase in retirement costs in the 2018 budget. These combined efforts on the revenue and expense sides of the equation have, again, despite what would have otherwise been a minimum 4.3% tax hike just to address the 9% increase in salaries alone, resulted in a budget that actually reduces taxes by 0.43%. By way of comparison, the combined 2019 budget request for all departments with prior staffing levels, if approved, would have been a 10.1% increase in taxes over 2018. Importantly, this cut was not achieved via unrealistic budgeting or improper use of fund balance to spend down and offset ongoing operational expenses, which would simply kick the can of these pay increases down the road while spending our accounts dry. In previous years, we have seen the usage of fund balance range from $1.2 million to $3.5 million. On average, budgeted fund balance usage has been $2.2 million per year. This year's budget, meanwhile, places fund balance usage at $1.9 million, toward the lower end of that range. Importantly, in all of these prior years, only $300,000 of fund balance was actually spent out of our accounts for budgeted operational expenses, with the remainder offset by spending that stayed below the allocated amount and increased revenues above projections. At the per resident level, this would translate into a 1.43% tax cut for a resident in a home with a $200,000 assessed value before the mandated base proportion shift between classes of property. That would then net into a 1.42% cut when sewer user fees are added in. Efforts by the town board, our representatives in Albany, and I to lobby for and pass key legislation creating a limit on the shift between residential and commercial property tax allocations in any single year allowed us to, for the first time, reduce the impact of that base proportion shift on our homeowners once it is then overlaid onto our overall tax rate, with that shift still, however, pushing the impact to a 0.66% increase on that average homeowner. Finally, this budget puts us at $1.8 million under the tax cap, by far the largest amount the town has been under the tax cap since it was created, all of which, if we run into unexpected situations down the road, will carry over for future usage towards future tax caps. This budget reflects the beginning of a multi-year plan. The process conducted this year identified a few other positions that are eligible to be reduced in the coming years as vacancies appear due to changes in workload and organizational structure. We will continue to expand the use of modern labor-saving technology in town government in order to facilitate a leaner, less expensive workforce. Second, as we enter a period of increased capital project spending to include such possible projects as a community center, a dog park, a sprinkle park or splash pad, and a much-needed new town hall, the intent of future budgets will be to focus more on reducing operational fund balance allocation in favor of applying it towards those capital expenditures. This change will also allow us to further increase our credit rating, thereby reducing our borrowing costs when we will be likely increasing bonding for those same capital projects. And an eventual new town hall will in turn increase the ability to share services between departments by restructuring the actual floor plan of the building to be less cellular and more interconnected. Finally, as we are in the final year of a revenue-reducing pilot on the IRG property and starting an upward climb in revenue from the Chase Data Center property, we are locked in to see increases in revenue that is not derived from our homeowners and existing businesses, even without taking into account other efforts to bring new businesses into town and sell town-owned land for appropriate business use. I look forward to the public hearings on this budget and further input from the town board. This is one of those years of reckoning, in which government has to make hard choices to deal with decisions of the past, and when we will decide whether it is our focus to make Orangetown more affordable whenever we can, or allow the simplistic practices of past supervisors to continue to grow our tax burden even when it need not be increased. I believe this budget does in fact accomplish both of those things in a responsible manner. I hope you, my fellow residents and board members, will agree. Thank you. Right. Any thoughts at the moment? We're going to move into the first public hearing for the Town Code and electric vehicle charging stations, since we're at 8:07. Are we okay with that? Yeah. All right, great. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing on the Town Code change for electric vehicle charging stations? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Troy. I don't believe I have anyone who is signed in for this, but I have a hand in the back. I'm sorry, I skipped the entire process of the publication and everything. Let's start that over again. That's why you gave me the script, right? I taped it here. All right, we have the public hearing. I got that part. Town Clerk, could you please advise us to the publications and any submissions that were received since it was published?
We have the town hall publication, the Journal News, Rockland County, Department of Planning.
You can't hear you with that.
Move the microphone. There we go.
And then we have Orangetown Planning Board.
Okay. And, all right, so again, this is related to allowing the town code to be changed to permit electric vehicle charging stations, essentially structured so that we then will make the decision about what the rules are for it via resolution, so we can change it in the future if necessary without having a local law change. This creates a very basic framework, definitions, and how we could do that, which would probably start at the next workshop meeting if this passes today. So that being said, is there anything regarding county planning, any negative things from any of the planning boards? It was all just good to go, right? Approved by the different planning boards? Okay, great. So I'm going to ask the gentleman who had his hand up over there, if you would step up. You have actually 5 minutes if you're so inclined to use the 5 minutes. If you could just state your name for the record, and then whenever you're ready.
Good evening. My name is John G. Waffenschmidt. I live at 87 Burroughs Lane, Blauvelt, New York, 10913. I'm an environmental scientist, and I'm testifying as a citizen. In the simplest sense, this is to voice my support to allow for electric vehicle charging stations with an appropriate fee structure to be implemented by the town of Orangetown. Given our transition from fossil fuel infrastructure and internal combustion engines to a different format warrants flexibility in approach. I do, however, offer some specific suggestions. Do not differentiate between the defined electric vehicle and the defined battery electric vehicle. Beyond some of the more unusual electric vehicles which have been identified, it should be recognized that a plug-in hybrid vehicle will be more affordable by most people than a roadworthy battery electric vehicle. With regard to fee structure, it should be a fair price for services rendered, especially to the extent that those charging stations are level 2 stations. In that regard, it should be recognized that many batteries will have been charged well within the 12 or 8-hour allowed periods. While one is always concerned about abuse, I would encourage the town to be sensitive to individual time management with regard to a vehicle overextending its welcome. I strongly recommend that the town consider using monies from the Volkswagen settlement in order to pay for these electric charging stations. With regard to the NYSERDA grant monies, the town should consider the possibility of placing 110 outlets or incentivizing businesses to place 110 outlets for use by persons who travel with their level 1 plug. This would enable far greater initial penetration of potential electric use than level 2 or level 3 stations. The practices that Volkswagen used in order to bypass the testing of the nitrogen oxides emissions was downright criminal. The settlement suit, while of some value, did not allocate those dollars in such a way to enable the maximum nitrogen oxides emissions elimination. A far better solution would have been to offer incentives for the purchase of hybrid vehicles. This would have resulted in a greater nitrogen oxides reduction per dollar spent, as well as reduce the nitrogen oxide emissions per induced mile traveled. In that regard, to the extent that Orangetown participates in the deliberative process with regard to future decisions on vehicles, I would encourage the recognition of the affordability of hybrid vehicles versus those with larger electric batteries. As we seriously consider the transition from fossil to clean electric, we should recognize that there are some public sector considerations with this transition. Once again, to the extent that Orangetown or its elected officials participate in the decision-making process, I encourage consideration of the following thoughts. Solar production has some differential costs associated with the electric grid. While today there is not sufficient solar capacity in the state to warrant concerns from electric grid owners, some have inappropriately talked against solar because of these real practical issues with regard to grid integration. The current state-of-the-art combined cycle natural gas facilities are able to run efficiently and at established emissions at 40% of capacity. In addition, they are able to ramp up and down at speeds akin to peaking units. This ramped capacity provides the grid the ability to absorb this solar capacity during periods of solar production. It should be recognized that a myriad of approvals are necessary by solar homeowners in order to bring such capacity to their homes. The issue is further compounded by the extremely limited compensation that those homeowners receive when they exceed their annual usage and be paid by the utility. Clearly, there is a need to contemplate the prosumer as a player in this transformation. While many speak about the potential of the current liquid lithium-ion batteries, they have some inherent safety problems. Those problems will likely be rectified once we go to solid-state chemistry. In the meantime, there should be a degree of caution with regard to such liquid battery chemistry units. We should be fully cognizant that maximum solar value in this area is enabled by a south-southwest exposure. I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I have a copy to leave with the board.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the input. Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak on the public hearing regarding electric vehicle charging stations? Okay. Is there any thoughts or commentary we want to offer before we close the public portion? No? You want to close it? All right. Do I have a motion to close the public portion of the, Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor? Okay, so next we have the declaration of lead agency and SECRA. Yes, Tom. So these are all things that are gonna be done by resolution after. This now allows us to then designate the number of spaces and the regulations in the following sequence of meetings. Basically, I wanted to take into account a lot of what you said with, we don't really know what it's gonna be like. So Rob kind of edited this down to just the bare bones needed to pass resolutions. So if we find out after a month of one type of resolution that it's not really how people are using the spaces, we could change it without having to go through a whole amendment of the town code. So this is really just, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just definitions and a structure, right?
Right, it sets up the structure and it provides that based upon posting, the resolution, the board will pass by resolution. I remember Mr. Divany brought up that you didn't want cars, maybe electric vehicles, to take more than 2 hours in a spot at certain times. So we can, that can be adjusted depending upon usage, if they're totally empty, for the first 6 months or something. But
Well, the other.
this is a setup, this is setting it up so that we have the law in place, and then resolutions can address time, dollar amounts, the amount we charge, et cetera.
Well, and the location.
Yes,
I think
Absolutely.
Yeah.
the location that's presently suggested right in front of the train I don't think it's viable, because there isn't as many spots downtown, especially since the board has passed that housing law regarding the number of units, the adult units over Joyce. And second, if you are downtown, you'll realize that the train station lets out right there, and you always have taxi cab drivers right where you're proposing to put those spots. So you're gonna have congestion, and you could have potential accidents down there just because it's gonna be bottled up. So that's just something you guys gotta take into consideration.
When we get to that point, I was thinking it might make sense for designating these spaces. We have to designate the rules first, right? That's gonna be one resolution. For designating the spaces, we have to do the zoning of parking already. So it might make sense to take a good hard look at that whole area where we might want to have a taxi stand. If we do end up putting it there, we have to make sure that we control the traffic flow wherever we put it. So I think when we vote on a map for the parking in the coming meetings, alongside doing the actual rules for these spaces, we should take into account all that together, because we have that 30-minute zone. We have to consider whether we want to keep the 2 hours where they are, because we had that zone that was passed back in January. So it might be good to just do it holistically at the same time.
These are just, and the time frame we're looking at is extended period of time.
Not
So-
necessarily, yeah.
Well, compared to what you do now, it's 2 hours max, half hour minimum. So if you're looking, these charging stations, if they're gonna be 4 to 8 hours,
Right.
then they should be put off to not in the downtown, like, on the,
But we have municipal
the-
lots, right?
yeah,
We could use
yeah,
them.
but I'm saying it should be further away from the train station and the restaurants, because they're obviously gonna be there for 4 to 8 hours.
I guess the question is if they're there for 48 hours. If we want to keep it at 2, then
Well,
they don't
I mean,
need to be there the whole charge. is the
I'm
issue.
not an
Yeah.
expert, but if you're leaving your car, if you're gonna pay for 4 hours, you're gonna leave it there for 4 hours. Whereas,
If we allow it.
whereas if you're going in a 2-hour slot, you wanna get in and out, or a half an hour slot, but a 4-hour slot, I'd put further away from the downtown businesses and from the train station.
Right, and what I'm saying is it doesn't if we don't want it to be, if we want it, I personally think the location is good for several reasons, but that said, if we're concerned about length of parking, we can
I'm
set the length
just-
of parking at 2 hours.
As
There's no
someone who,
rules.
as someone
We're
who has a
setting rules.
I look out that window every day and I see, just before you put those spots in, there's already competition, and there's a lot of cars going in and out of there. I don't think we should designate those for long-term parking for electric cars. I think it should be,
We're not determining.
But that's
that
not
tonight.
today.
no, but I'm
No,
just,
you have for future thoughts.
I'm just saying, if you,
I
I agree with you, Tom. We have, off of William Street, there's a long-term parking lot.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
behind Joyce, that other one.
Yep.
Exactly, so it probably, in one of the long-term parking lots, would, you may have to walk
No,
a
I'm
block
just
to the
putting it in
station,
there.
but if you're gonna leave it there for the whole day.
I guess the question is gonna be, if we want it to be long-term parking, maybe that's not the best spot. If we want it to be 2 hours and
Correct.
shuffle like everything else is in that area, then it's a fine spot. It's gonna be up to us to decide which we think is best. But we don't really, the problem is in the end, it's building, they will come. We don't know what the usage is gonna be like.
No,
until
we
we
don't.
I
do it.
guess the question is, are you expecting people who go to work to leave their car there and plug it in?
well, that's the
Or are you
concern I have.
expecting people who are going shopping to bring their car there and plug it in for 2 hours? I would assume that to go into work would be a more viable option, so they would be in the longer-term lots. But that's something we can look at when we get to that point.
I'll just put, you know.
Right, and it
Yeah.
also, it applies to Spark Hill as well, so
Yeah,
there's
we're
some
gonna be
spots
doing
there
this,
that
there's spots there
that are
too,
relevant.
which are on the depot area. Okay. All right, so barring any other thoughts on the subject, do we want to move for the resolution on secra? And, all right, is there a motion for that?
I make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now we have the actual resolution adopting the local law regarding the electric vehicle charging stations, so we can then make those decisions that we were discussing. Is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Moving on, we do have another public hearing, and then we'll go back to public comment. This one is a continuation of our storage container town code. Has there been any submissions, town clerk, from relevant authorities since the last public portion of this?
Just the Department of Planning.
Okay, and that was just a no issues one, right? There was nothing override? Correct. Okay, good. Thank you very much. So let's go ahead and do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing for a temporary storage container for the town code? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Troy. Just a summary of the changes right now. What were some of the edits that we did for this one, Rob, from the last time that caused it to be continued? I believe it was something related to the emergency situations extensions, right?
Yeah, right, and it had to do with having a building permit. So
Okay,
in
so
essence,
building inspector
it's
may
number
grant
two,
a permit to extend the initial 180 days for an additional 180 days,
provided,
provided the applicant has a valid and existing building permit for construction activities or applies for such a building permit simultaneously with the application. So previously, the limit was not extendable in a situation where you're waiting on a permit or you are still going under construction. In this case now, we have a thing to account for that.
right, so in essence, you get 30 days free. After 30 days, you need a permit, and that gives you 6 months. If you are doing construction, you can get another 6 months.
Okay. Any public comment on the subject for temporary storage containers? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public portion of the hearing on the temporary storage container town code change? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Right. Do we want to adopt the seeker and then discuss, or you want to discuss and then adopt the seeker?
We pretty much.
We did talk it
discussed
out,
this
really.
Quite a bit.
Yeah,
and I
so we
think
just
all
move
know
forward.
where we're standing, so.
Okay. So do I have a motion on the declaration for seeker and lead agency and neg deck combo? Number 7, Councilman Troy, Councilman, second Batari. All in favor? Aye. All right. Resolution to actually adopt the local law, given that everyone feels they've talked it out. Is there a motion on this resolution? Motion from Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari. Do we want to do a roll call?
Yes.
All right, on a roll call for the town clerk.
Dennis Troy,
Yes.
Councilman. Tom Divany,
Yes.
Paul Valentine,
No.
Jerry Vitari,
Yes.
and Supervisor Prisday.
Yes. All right, thank you. So now we're going to hit pause on our actual agenda items and return back, if I can find the sign-in sheet. Where is it? To our generic public comment, we'll call it, not specific to a subject. We have 2 sign-ins, and I'm sure a couple others that might want to join in. The first one is Michael Mandel from Pro River. Public comment is 3 minutes. When the bell goes off, which we now have our sign back because we're back in our regular meeting room, just wrap up the sentence if you could, and then we'll move on. Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the town board. For the record, my name is Michael Mandel, a resident of Pearl River. I just wanted to talk about something that impacts first responders. As you all know up there, when you go around looking to get things signed, petitions, and whatever else, sometimes you can't find addresses on houses. And being out Sunday looking for certain things in Pearl River, it hasn't changed one iota in all the years, even though we've asked for it in the past. It seems to be a big problem. And when we're talking about emergency responders, we're talking not about hours or minutes, we're talking about seconds. Response to a heart attack or an overdose that needs the shot, seconds do count. It would be nice to see all the houses have some sort of numbers on them, whether it's on their mailbox, a complete number, not a partial number that's worn off, or on the house over the garage that can be seen. So just a recommendation, maybe as we send out notices from the town on our website, just make a note that for your own personal safety, because if they can't find your house, and even though we have GPS in that, GPS is not always correct, and when houses are close together, which house is the right house does bring up a thing. We may want to also work with the school districts, with the grammar schools. If you talk to kids in grammar schools and you send them home with this thing about getting numbers on their houses, a lot of the parents will comply because they don't want to hear from the kids anymore. After a while, these children keep going on and on and on. We know that. And they don't stop until they get a response from their parents. So maybe we could do something like that, and as we go on, maybe it'll save somebody who has a heart attack or an overdose or a fire in a house. They get there right away, and as we said, seconds do count. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
What happened there? Oh, whoa, there we go. Just getting used to the timer again, sorry. Next, we have Esther Baitler from Venture. Whenever you're ready, Esther.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and town board members. Hi, as an advocate for change in Spark Hill, I feel that anybody who is handicapped, they should not be charged for parking in downtown Spark Hill. Handicapped people should be exempt from this issue. I also feel very strongly that I shouldn't have to be told that I should only speak for 2 minutes. Wrong. That has to change to 5 minutes. You know I'm right, Chris, you can't argue with me. I also would like to speak about that our LED streetlights are not working appropriately. I'm tired, I've heard it from people who live at Thorpe Village who have called me on this issue. I talked to Paul Valentine. He's well aware of it. I want to know why nothing has been done. Why? Is it because it's venture? Is that unfair? No one realizes what a wonderful agency we have. But this has to stop. I want to know why the board has not called Albright. I've called them several times. This is ridiculous. I'm really disgusted that people come for board meetings at Venture and look and say, the streetlights are not working. It's not right. You take care of other people, but when we need something, it doesn't get done. It's not fair, it's an embarrassment. I don't want to bring Matthew Shelley down here, but something has to be done now, not later. I think the board needs to get a handle on it and get it fixed now. I don't want to wait 2 years. It's not fair. Even my Venture people are questioning me. Why aren't the streetlights working? After I said, you know what? I'll bring it up. It's not fair. And you know that, Dennis. And nothing is being done. This is a safety issue. Thorpe people have bbeen talking to me and saying as to why aren't they working. I said, call town hall, put complaints in. Don't just sit there, do something.
Thank you,
Be
Esther.
proactive,
Thank
not
you, Esther.
reactive.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you and have a great night.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in public comment who's not signed in? Yes. 3 minutes, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Honorable Town Supervisor, Town Board members, I'm Robert Tompkins of Pearl River, and I was a member of the Orangetown Housing Authority Board, otherwise known as Cortwood Village, for 5 years. And full disclosure, I'm also a candidate for Town Clerk Receiver of Taxes in the November election. And greetings to the interim Town Clerk. Hello, we've never met. There are items on the agenda regarding rescinding past resolutions accepting resignation of Housing Authority Board member and appointment of a new board member as the Housing Authority Treasurer. The Housing Authority is a government entity that's independent from the town, except the town board appoints people to the Housing Authority Board. The Housing Authority Board decides for themselves who its officers are. The treasurer is decided by the Housing Authority, not by the town board. When I became a board member of the Housing Authority vice chairperson was not even appointed by the town board as a board member, but that changed very soon. So I'm just clarifying, because we have changes on the board,
It's an
and
error
over
on that,
time,
just to be clear.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to pause it so you don't, it's an error in that resolution. It carried over from the previous one when there was an error. We're going to be appointing him just back to the board. The treasurer part will be stricken when we vote.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The treasurer portion is going to be struck from the resolution. It's an error that carried over from the last time we had a resolution on the subject.
I understand.
So
You're
it's-
rescinding the
we are
prior
not
one.
No, but we're not actually going to appoint him the treasurer.
I understand.
That's the error in there. So
Yeah,
we
I understand.
agree with you on that point.
Okay,
It's not
okay.
happening that way.
I just want to clarify
Yeah,
it
that's why I wanted
for
to
the future.
clarify.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. And as you know, there's a very close relationship between the Housing Authority, Cortwood Village, and the town. And as you know, I'm a certified public accountant. I was happy we saved over $500,000 of interest expense by refinancing the Housing Authority bonds. The Housing Authority could not refinance until we discovered after the Cortwood Village fire we could, if the town board issued certain findings. And it did. And I thank you for that. We saved money and we raised an additional $2 million for a needed 5-year plan of capital improvements, preventing further deterioration. I'm sure people in Cortwood Village really appreciate what you had done about a year and a half ago. But given the importance of Cortwood Village to the town and its residents, I suggest the town ask the Housing Authority for a progress report every 3 months or whatever, just so that it's in the public eye, because it's a very important asset over there and provides a very important service. And this is a big deal. So thank you very much for considering that.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment who did not sign in? Going once? In the back, yes. That's all right. It's a squeaky floor. It's not the shoes. Trust me. Whenever you're ready, just state your name for the record, please.
Vincent Lupi. So I just wanted to come in here and take a moment to bring back up Aloof. I know I understand Chris Day released a statement today. I haven't had the opportunity to read it. Been working all day, and then I had some school obligations with my children. But it's an ongoing problem. I will look into it and read what you released today. But I hope you're doing something about it. It's constant. I don't always have the opportunity to report. I do when I can. Sometimes I don't have my phone. I was running the other night, Monday night, and it just stinks. And I love where I live, but I don't love the smell. I think it's only a matter of time. It's so public at this point. It's going to start bringing our home values down. So I hope you guys are doing everything you can to try to just stop the smell and stop what could potentially be very, very dangerous for us. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Appreciate it. Do you have a copy of this? I think we had some outside. All right, yeah, just what you have it here. It's okay, no problem. It just was put out before the meeting. Anyone else for public comment? I'm going to do the going once again, going twice. Do we have a motion to close from Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari? All in favor of closing public comment period?
Aye.
All right, great. So real quick, house numbers, very true. I think an educational campaign is important. I've had a couple Eagle Scouts ask about painting them on curbs. It's like a project. It's a safety issue. It's not about privacy. And it's in the town code too. Thank you, Jane. I see you're waving. Esta, we called Albright. I know you called them more than a few times because they told me you called them a lot. Esta, I need you to just let me talk for a second, okay? The LEDs are functioning as designed around Venture, and I want to say I visited Venture the other day with John Murphy, an incredible place, staffed by incredible people, and we definitely do not disrespect that organization. I know the folks on the board here more than agree with me on that one.
Chris cannot work.
I understand, Esta, thank you.
Paul,
Okay, I understand. Yes, Paul will, I'm sure, deal with it as necessary. Robert, like I said, there is a typographical error in that agenda item from the previous time we had it, and it's just fixing a mistake, and we accidentally accepted a resignation that didn't happen, and it's just going to be appointed to the board, not the treasurer.
And that was my mistake, putting it on in the first place. I thought the person had resigned, and the person didn't resign.
Just a miscommunication, essentially. So we're fixing that now, with apologies to all parties, obviously. For Vincent Aloof, I want you to know we are 100% working as hard as we can. This is, as you know, a very difficult issue because it has overlapping jurisdictions. The DEC is involved. They were just on site on Friday and did a full investigation along with our new public health engineer who was there. He just started a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago. He's getting trained up. He's now learning this week, along with our code enforcers, the new olfactometers, which go with our brand new town code for odor. So now, once those are trained up by the end of this week, when he observes it, he still won't be a code enforcer, but he can take an observation and swear an affidavit to the code enforcers to get a citation on them for odor that's above the levels, if it reaches above the statutory level. Based on previous experience, there's a very good chance it will at times. We will then hit them as necessary. We also brought on the new engineering firm to review the whole Aloof situation and design and give the ZBA a plan for how to fix it. Aloof had previously said they were going to cooperate and sort of voluntarily submit some redesigns for us to review. They decided a few days back to just send recalculated numbers of our other thing and blow us off, and that's fine because we didn't lose any time. We had to go through the process of hiring this firm, and now they're ready. And had they helped, it would have been a lot more painful of a process, but it's still going to be a successful process. The DEC is fully engaged. If you look at the chart in this thing, and we're going to send this out via email in the next 24 to 48 hours or so, we've seen the total complaints drop substantially. So when they closed the openings per Jane Slavin's suggestion in the roof, there was a positive impact. You could see that from April to May, a huge drop. However, of late, over the summer and going into the fall now, we're seeing a 2-week cycle starting to show up. Their carbon filter changing schedule per the DEC right now is 2 weeks, coincidentally, probably not coincidentally. So I brought that up to the DEC, and they're going to evaluate that. And if they have to start telling them to change the filters every week and a half, so that every other week you're not dealing with an increased odors, I'm sure they'll make that change. They've done it before where they've gone from 3 to 2 weeks, and they told them different types of carbon filter versus others. So we're attacking it on all fronts. We were hoping that they would cooperate. They've decided to sort of back off from that commitment, but that's fine. We didn't lose any effort for trying. And we will make sure that it's brought back below nuisance levels, and we have no issues for the folks in those neighborhoods. And we are definitely putting all the resources we have, and we have more resources now to do it. Anything else, gentlemen, for the folks in public comment? No? To my left? No? Yes? Okay, great. Moving back into our agenda items. We are on item number 9, which page numbers aren't numbered, but it's agenda item 9. This is to set the public hearing for the Blauvelt Fire Protection District. To explain that for those listening, there is one fire department in the town that actually gets funding through the town. The rest are direct votes of the residents in that district. That's Blauvelt. It's just the way the law was structured years ago. So they need a public hearing for that. Is there a motion to set the public hearing for October 16th? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? Great. And then similarly for the Orangetown library districts and services, we have all the South Orangetown, essentially libraries, are funded from the town, whereas Pearl River is a school district library funded directly by the voters. We have to do a public hearing also on the 16th. Is there a motion on that one? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? Great. The tenant representative for Orangetown Housing Authority is appointed by the residents, but we are just acknowledging and recognizing her appointment. Is there a motion? So moved by Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? All right. Congratulations, Sharon Ogden, on your appointment by your fellow residents. Next, we're going to designate the Highway Department the official maintenance and inspection supervisor of the Adopt a Spot program. This has been kind of an unofficial thing. They already had the form. The funding will all come out from the general fund, not from the highway fund, because it's not a highway thing, but they do have the knowledge base to tell us if things are done right. And most of the permitting has gone through them in the past. So is there a motion on this? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Troy. All in favor? Great. Next we've workshopped this. We have an Adopt a Spot for actually the train station itself, for repainting it. Metro North has given us permission to do that. We're going to be funding the supplies, which will be no more than $1,000, whereas the labor is provided free by Lower Hudson Valley Property Management. Is there a motion on this one?
I'll make it.
Councilman Troy.
A volunteer from the town has been working on this in terms of getting this company to come in. That's Joe Malillo. He's done a great job, so just to recognize him.
Yeah, it's done an incredible job. Joe Malillo and also Deborah Stoll-Weissenberg. The other Adopt a Spot that we already approved at Brownsdorf Park, across from the train station, the bulk of the beginning work has been completed. They pulled out a bunch of old brush, poison ivy even. They fixed the patio. They are working on, they put a whole bunch of new plantings in, took down the collapsed column over on the left-hand side, that brick column, took it down completely. A lot of great work so far. They've killed all the crabgrass and they're getting it prepped to grow real grass in there. It's going to be a beautiful change, and it's not affecting anything done by the different community groups in town that have put memorials and such. They actually made them look a lot nicer by cleaning them up a bit. So this is working well. So we have a motion from Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next, we have the motion to accept the retirement of Mike Yanazone from our Highway Department. 40 years of excellent service to the town. Is there a motion on that one? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
And we have a resolution to approve the Columbia Presbyterian University Ride to End Cancer on Sunday, October 7th. That'll run from 10:30 to 1 p.m. It's a bike ride through the town.
Motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss. Is there a second for the motion to discuss?
I'll make it.
Councilman Valentine, all in favor? All right.
All right.
For discussion.
Here's the issue I have with this. I have no issue with trying to raise funds for cancer and cancer research. I do have a problem with us dealing with Columbia University 2 weeks before the 38th anniversary of the Brinks robbery, because Columbia University employs Kathy Boudin, who's one of the terrorists that killed 2 Orangetown officers. And we've sent Columbia University a number of resolutions in opposition to this, and they basically thumb their noses at us. So my proposal is, right now, they've set this up. I'm not going to vote against it, but we're going to send them a copy of the resolution that we're going to do again this year in honor of the 38th anniversary.
Yeah, I have a question. Is this the same?
This is part of Columbia University, Jerry.
It's a branch thereof, yeah. The Columbia
They're
University
affiliated
network.
with
They're
it.
affiliated, yeah.
And the bottom line is, it says it on the flyer. The bottom line is, let them know that, you know what, they're not going to have access to our streets. We're not going to give them approval of anything until they take into consideration. And the funny thing is, they're going to want our police to help out with this race. They're going to want our police to protect the people in this race, and they don't even recognize the fact that they've hired a murderer and thumbed their nose at the town of Orangetown. So I'll vote for it, but I want something to Columbia saying, you know what, no more. Don't come to Orangetown unless you take into account, the person you hired.
I can't disagree at all. I mean, listen, I think separating out the good work of the hospital from the university is important, which I think we're doing by voting for it. But we have to take to task the university for continuing to employ a cop killer. Affected our own community. So I agree completely, Tom.
All right,
So I don't know, do you guys want to put a resolution for next month on to do it, or you want to just get a letter and circulate it?
I have the old resolution that's.
Well, we're going to put that on anyway, but you want to just send both together to them, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Saying,
we'll send
here's
both
your
with the note,
approval, here's a resolution, you know, if you,
with a cover letter, yeah.
with a cover letter saying that, you know what, no more.
That makes sense to me. Everyone good? Do you have a motion to end discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second. Councilman Troy, all in favor? All right, so do I have a motion to approve the Ride to End Cancer from Columbia Presbyterian University bike ride thing? There's no
I'll
really.
make a motion
Okay.
with the caveat we send.
All right, a motion with a caveat that the board will transmit this along with the future resolution regarding Kathy Boudin and a cover letter reflecting our disappointment. That's going to be the entire motion. So, the second from Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. 16, resolution to extend the municipal lump sum agreement for snow and ice for 229K. Moved by Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? 17, resolution to approve a supplement agreement extension for Lochner Engineering for the Route 340 Sidewalk project, $48,000. Any questions for Jim Dean about this one? No? Is there a motion?
I will note that the 340, the money we're spending on this thing, is still right there by Venture and Thorpe and Stack.
It is, right there.
We're always spending money in that area because we do
Support
value the organizations that are there.
Very much so. All right. Esther, you got, they named a street after you, Esther. I think they congratulate you. Any motion on this one? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Valentine, all in favor? Great. Then this one here, Jim, actually, this might be a good one for you to just explain, because it kind of popped on and off a couple times. This is related to the, what's it called? Transportation, sediment transportation, right?
It's related to flooding issues.
Yeah.
Route 303. Let me make sure I have the right. Is that Mountain View? No, actually, it's just downstream. What are we on?
Number 18, Jim.
18.
Last one in your section.
Oh, no, okay, no, I have wrong numbers. I have an
Probably
old
the draft copy,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's 19,
19 in your old one.
no, Lochner, we did 20 here. Okay. Yep, I think I've got them.
This is the Mazer one for the sediment,
Right, this is for,
155,640.
yes, okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Thanks,
there was changes towards the.
Yeah, no, I have a wrong heading on mine. I have an old
No
one.
problem.
Yeah, basically, what needs to be explained is, this was a $50,000 grant that we received from the DEC that was put in last year, the year before. We didn't know what the engineering cost was going to be to do the design to replace a culvert. This culvert is the one that holds the roadway that goes back to Innovative Plastics, which is the first one downstream from Mountain View Avenue. It's actually private, but it was approved when they built it. There's no way to get a change. We can't force them to do it. But because this is on our plan with the county to avoid hazard mitigation, and because it impacts the Spark Hill Creek and water conditions, we have this plan that we could rebuild this and make it have the same capacity as the downstream one, which would take pressure off Mountain View Avenue, which doesn't mean that Mountain View Avenue will be absolutely without work. That's going to probably need something in the future, too. We got a $50,000 grant. We put out bids, and we got, I think, 6 contractors that submitted bids on it. And Mazer was the lowest, substantially lower than the others. And their bid came in for the engineering at $156,000. So it's a lot more than the $50,000 that we have for the bid. The good part of this is if we get this in design and we get any FEMA issues, we have something in place to be able to try to get more money from FEMA. We've got a DEC commitment right now for $220,000 to replace it, which we think is going to be closer to $600,000 to actually replace that culvert. So But the bottom line is we can pay $50,000 with the grant, but we have to authorize the other $100,000 to get Mazer going on doing this design. I think it's a worthwhile investment, but it's not what we anticipated or
More
what
than we expected.
was talked about when we put in for the grant.
So
We
of
had
the-
no idea what it was gonna cost.
Of the 155, about 100's on us, essentially.
Yes.
And the 105. And
Yeah, the
50's on
$50,000
on
is
site.
guaranteed.
Right. Could
It's
be-
not saying we can't reach out to them and ask for more.
Right.
Too, because
It's just we need to authorize it, though, to do
what
that.
our submittal, our grant submittal was just an estimate, so.
Any other questions for Jim about this particular resolution?
I know it's a flooding problem.
It's a consistent issue that, you know, it's one of those things we kind of have, we don't have a choice, but
Yeah,
it's
the-
really an
the-
important thing.
Culvert, next one downstream from that is Orangeburg Road.
Right.
Which never even comes close to capacity.
Yeah.
But this
We
one.
can get past that bottleneck,
In
is what
heavy,
you're saying.
in heavy storms, I've seen it 2 feet over the top of this
Same
one.
here, yeah.
But even in a moderate storm, it pushes the water back, that floods 303 right there.
Right. I didn't
Sorry?
see- It wasn't bad today.
No, we didn't have any flooding
Today
today.
was okay. But
No.
back in those rains we had, that whole section of 303 was flooded out.
Yeah,
A
it
couple
was
months.
only,
It was
only
April and July, I think.
6 weeks ago,
Yeah.
where it had to be shut down
Yeah.
again. And that's usually the first place that starts the backups.
Okay. All right, barring, and good, so a motion from Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you, Jim.
Good, thank you.
Next, we have Food Truck Festival for the Niagara Red and Black Club. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Troy, all in favor? And just to be clear, that was for the showmobile, sorry. Resolution to approve a memorial bench donation for Vets Memorial Park in loving memory of Marty Seresnick.
Moved.
Okay, we'll let Dennis do that as the motion since he knows the gentleman, and Councilman Divney with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. This resolution is a resolution to extend the agreement for Applied Golf for the Blue Hill Golf Course. I know there have been discussion or consideration for longer extension for Blue Hill and also an extension for Broadacres. But with the thought process for Rob, and not to speak on your behalf, but let's get this in while we can, and then we'll extend further as necessary, because they were kind of hitting the tail end
Right,
of their.
it's 3-year with a 3-year addition.
No, actually, Teresa was handling this for us. What happened, the 3-year, right, was
I'm fine
up.
with that.
It was part of the RFP originally, correct? So we're okay with doing it 2 years, and then when it came up about maybe making it 5, we were kind of still in discussion on
Yeah.
the logistics of that. So for now, we'll do the 2, and then,
Well, this says in the resolution, an initial term of 3 years with an additional 2 years, so I vote for this.
no, but that was.
No, this is,
No, it's
the
3 years
RFP
is what we
provided
got.
for an
Initial
initial
term of
term.
3,
This is the
right.
whereas.
So the-
Go to the bottom,
Right.
it says an additional 2 years,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
You can
Good try, good try. Vote away, Paul. Any other thoughts? We will come back and address the length and also the other golf course once we get them in a place where they're comfortable. All right, motion?
I'll move it.
Councilman Divney, second Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Approve and let aid to the Noble Ninth for their Trauben Fest, Sunday, October 7th. They would like the showmobile at a rental cost of $400. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it.
Councilman Valentine, second from. Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Resolution to appoint Caitlin Morrison to the position of Accession Clerk 1, less than full-time provisional. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, Councilman Troy with the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Next, new business, these are items that were not on the workshop because of the gap we had between the workshop and this meeting, so some stuff is not workshop. If we want to take our time with it, of course, we will. This first resolution is to set the public hearing for that water course diversion permit. We heard the presentation from Lino on. Is there anyone who has any thoughts they want to share before we vote, or questions for Jane or for Jim or anyone else? No? Okay, we've discussed it before.
Yeah, we have. The only thing I'd say is, as Tom said in the past, this should really be on a workshop, no matter what, first,
Right.
before it comes on the town board. I understand we knew about it, we did talk about it.
This one doesn't
Jane
necessarily
did
have to
talk
be
about
voted
it.
on. I mean, this one, we could wait to set the hearing if we want to, but it's not we're not making a
Well,
hard
I hear
decision.
you, Dennis, but Tom agrees, and so do I, that really it should come before a workshop, before,
Because people don't realize if it's a presentation, what it really means. But here's the deal, you know, if there's any questions, I'll ask them at the hearing, so, because, I'll wait until then.
And the only thing, right, we'd want to be assured of is that they're making the situation better. So he's saying he's going from a 24-inch pipe to a 36-inch pipe, as long as Jimmy and DEME can assure us that that's going to make the situation better. I mean, I don't know how we can not approve it, but I agree that we should talk about it.
Again, I mean, it's gonna have to go through engineering.
Right.
So, I mean, until we get the result of everything, we're not voting on anything, is that correct?
I think the point is well
That's
taken
correct.
about the timing of it and whether this needed to necessarily be voted on today. I think it's a good point. That said, given that it is setting a hearing as opposed to any decision-making, I think
Yeah, and it's a month away.
right, and it's a month away, I think it's fair to
Well, I want to
take
see
one
what,
for the team on
I
it.
want to see what the neighbors have to say.
Right, as me as well. All right, so is there a motion on this one? Councilman Troy has set the public hearing, and that's going to be October 23rd at 8:15. Is there a second? Councilman Atari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Chris, before you go, just, they are planning tomorrow.
Oh, that was
So
why.
they
I'm
will
sorry.
get-
I should have looked at you.
Well, I was trying.
We had to get it in before the planning board could hear them.
Start going Chris.
I was looking down reading, I'm sorry. These things happen.
But they have to get preliminary in order for you guys to move forward
Right.
anyway. So they are scheduled for tomorrow. We did have PRC this past Friday morning. It seems that everything's lining up. So you will receive comments then from the planning board and the engineers that review it.
Okay, so there was a reason as it turns out. Next time, just shout
Yes.
at me.
Okay.
You got a
I
microphone?
don't know, that's a good enough reason for me.
All right. Next, this one technically isn't new business, though it's there because it wasn't in the agenda. We did have it as
I know.
a
It's like
separate
you
sheet
bought the lot.
at the workshop meeting. So this next one is to name the corner by the fire station in Tapan, Harold M. Diedrich Way, much as we did for Mel over in Pearl River with the blue sign. Mel Liebman. There is a required expiration date. Jim had explained there's some technicalities of the law. If you don't put an expiration date, it might actually rename the street permanently, like you change the green sign instead, as opposed to an honorific. But we don't actually have to take it down. We can just, technically expire it. So this was workshopped, it just wasn't in the agenda last time we workshopped.
I make a motion.
Motion from Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Resolution to authorize retention of Mazer Consulting for traffic signal
Good.
inspection services to improve 10 traffic signals. Does anyone have any questions for Jim on this? Because this is new on the agenda at least. It wasn't workshop, but there's some timing issues with it.
What's
Yeah,
the,
no,
ti- what's
it
the
wasn't-
time, what's the timeframe on fixing these traffic signals?
We're trying to get it as fast as possible. We had to bid out, we got 5 bids, but it fell in between the early September meeting and this meeting. That's why it's coming to you without it. Mazer was the low out of the 5 bids. This is for the design of the 10 traffic signals that we've bonded. So the sooner we move on this, the better it is.
Okay, but you're planning on doing this sometime, not the design, but actually working on some of the 10 in 2019?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to get this design in place so we can get out to bid before the end of this year. Yeah.
So, then do it
I know we had a question about the one that's on Flash over by the Hilton. That's on this list. However, we're reaching out for prices to try to repair it. That was one of the ones that was scheduled, and part of the issue is there are no parts left. It's so old. So we may have to come for an emergency just to get that one running, and then that would come off the list, and maybe something else could go on, or we could use those funds for this.
Okay.
But we are working at trying to get on that one ASAP. We're just waiting for the number from Verdi, who is our contract person. That would be the person we would hire to go out and have that done.
Great. All right, is there a motion on this one? More questions or something? No? Motion from Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And again, there is an effect here, and when we set the calendar next year, we're going to want to look at this harder. The gap between the meetings of, I think it was 3 weeks this time, it causes there to be these backlogs
That
of
was
things.
due to holidays.
Right, due to holidays, but there's only so much you can do, but we have to make sure we try to, it's happened before, but I don't know if it can be fixed, but we definitely want to pay attention to it, because it causes problems on both ends. This is to approve lend aid for South Orangetown Day for the Showmobile and Porta Johns. That's coming up on October 13th, which is, again, before our next meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine with the motion, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Then a resolution to approve for lend assistance for the Pervis Middle School Color Run. This is happening this Sunday, the 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm sorry, this happened last Sunday, the 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it's already happened. So is there a motion? Councilman Troy, Councilman Batari with the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Authorize use of town roads for the Escape New York bike ride from the New York Cycle Club. Again, this was on the 22nd of September. Again, a factor of
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine. Second from
It's already done.
Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Yep.
Non-pro tunc is a Latin term meaning, what was it, Rob? Now for then. It means we're voting as though it had not yet happened, though it did already.
I had 2 years of Latin, I don't remember that.
See, I didn't have any Latin, but I have a lawyer, so. Appoint property appraiser assistant Hugh J. Davies to permanent, effective September 26, 2018, and no change in salary. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
Authorize signature for the EAP contract that begins October 1st, 2018, and ends September 30th, 2019. There's an error in the last line of that resolution. Beginning October 1st, 2018, ending September 30th, 2019, it should read. Obviously, we need to do that 'cause before the next meeting. Is there a motion on that one? Batari, second from Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
This next one is to authorize an appraisal for the Hunt Road property where our park maintenance facility currently is. We have interest from possible purchasers, and we want to see what it's worth to us. Is there a motion on this one? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Accept, receive, file, town clerk's office, various agreements and documents. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from
Oh,
Councilman.
one of these is for Albright to fix the streetlights? That's good.
Yes,
How
the
about-
agreement, yeah.
I'm gonna vote for it.
Technically, they're already, this is after they
Okay.
finish, so this wouldn't be in effect yet.
Wait, what's
They're
the-
gone, it's done, it's fixed. Once we vote on this, it's fixed, that's it.
Aye.
All right, we had a second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? All right. This is the New York State SWAT operator course, which lasts for about a month and starts before the next meeting for 2 of our officers to attend at no cost to the town. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? Next, we have surplus equipment declaration for a variety of things from the Highway Department. If anyone's in the market for one of these things, just let Jim know. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Then we have a block party by a few businesses over on Main Street in Pearl River with water barriers. They're not going to be blocking the road. They'll be to the side of the parking spaces. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from.
I got a question on
Yes.
this one. Why would they have a block party on September 29th when the following week there is a Pearl River Day? They could partake in that whole.
So they are all participating in Pearl River Day. Apparently the desire of this new group of folks that are trying to occupy these otherwise vacant businesses is to get a little more focus on the Main Street section. So rather than doing a big thing, they're doing kind of a small 5 business, 6 business sort of thing onto the side of the road in the parking spaces and sidewalk area. Jim worked with them on the permit to try to make sure it was safe. And, but I do know for a fact everyone that's doing this is also going to be at Pearl River Day from speaking to the different businesses. But it's a thing that they're trying to do to try to drum up foot traffic in that area off the Central Avenue pathway, essentially. Okay.
Not really, but that's all right.
I mean, here's the deal. Usually Pearl River Day ends before their block. So
Right, exactly.
and I know there's Gentle Giant, and then you have AJ's Catering, and you have and then Matt Reed is moving his loan company. So you got
Karate places there too.
well, they've been there, but you have 3 new businesses that have just come to town in the last year or so. So I support
So
it.
it's not
Yeah.
just Gentle
No,
Giant?
no, they took the lead. They got letters from everyone that's participating. They just were the permittee to fill it out. It's not just Gentle Giant. That was a key statement to that was made, that it couldn't just be one business. We're not in the business of promoting a single
Okay,
business.
that was my concern.
Yeah, sorry, no problem.
Actually, is Russo's Pizza
They're participating too. A couple are coming over for booths to give variety, but it should be a decent event, I'm sure.
second.
Second from Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Resolution to award the bid for one new light-duty Mason dump truck from $65,000. Is there a motion on this one?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
And another one for a light-duty rack body truck instead of a Mason dump truck. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from
Second.
Councilman Divney, all in favor?
Aye.
It's not just because I'm at the high school.
Then we have, thanks to the work of one of our deputy town attorneys, Teresa Kenny, we will be making an extra $1,200 from our cell tower per year because of a slight change from Verizon. Is there a motion to approve by Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we can all go out to lunch. Then we're going to correct those things with the Housing Authority. Motion to rescind resolution number 540 regarding the resignation. Councilman Batari, Councilman Troy with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And then we are rescinding the resolution to appoint Sean Walsh to that same slot on the Housing Authority. Is there a motion on that one? Troy, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
We're almost there, gentlemen. Approve lend aid Nanuet West Nyack Rotary. This was discussed previously, ad hoc, and they're renting the showmobile. Since they overlap into Orangetown, we are willing to help. Councilman Batari with the motion, second from Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. This is a property in Pearl River. They have a retaining wall that was discovered upon survey when they were repairing it to actually already be within the town right of way. They need a hold harmless on it. So it was reviewed by the Highway Department. It requires that it can stay as long as they provide this agreement. We have to accept it essentially. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Valentine jumped over there, and Councilman Divney with the second. All in favor? Right.
I was agreeing.
Right. I can flip that around if you want to make. Okay. Resolution to grant permission for the Pearl River Chamber of Commerce to serve alcohol on town property subject to the State Liquor Authority licensing requirements and all applicable rules and regulations. This is for Pearl River Day. Is there a motion on this one? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Divney. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Resolution to reclassify secretary from the DME to a different position based on the results of a desk audit. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to award bid for the purchase of a new town vehicle for our new Commissioner of DME, who was authorized a 24-hour vehicle as in the past, although in the past it was paid directly as a sum to the DME Commissioner. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Divney. All in favor? Great.
All right.
Resolution to authorize use of showmobile for the Pearl River School District's 2018 PEP Rally on the 28th of September. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? The last one, if there needs to be questions, basically the Greenbush Road bicycle bypass in Blauvelt, we're going to be awarding the bid for that. After much discussion, do you guys want to hear a little brief explanation from Jim about this? Because it kind of went back and forth a few times.
We talked about.
So we've all talked individually with him? Okay. So is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? Next we have the, yes, Jim. Sorry. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Something not make it on?
Just because this is something we just became aware of, it's a kind of emergency situation at Courtwood Gardens. There's some serious deterioration at a catch basin down there with two very large holes right in the area where there's a lot of pedestrian activity. Normally, we don't do any work there because it's not a town road, it's not a highway. We've been asked if we can make an emergency repair. It's actually going to be rebuilding that catch basin, which is probably a day or two's work once we get in there and find out how bad it is. I believe the Highway Department can do it if the town board authorizes it, and we would have to be reimbursed from their funds. I believe we could do it because it is town property. We don't get involved in doing most of the work there because their administration, I think they used to have ARCO or somebody do
We
that
have
kind of
ARCO
work.
management.
Yeah, but this is getting, nothing has happened, and it's not going to get any better. In fact, with these heavy rains, I got to believe it's worse than when I saw it.
This catch basin is right in front of where the 8 units burned to the ground. And right now, there's 2 cones there, and the catch basin, I don't know if it's like 6 inches below, and there's holes on either side of it. And one of the things we've had in the Housing Authority last year, we had somebody drove through the front of somebody's living room, and we also had somebody slip and fall and sued. You know, in terms of liabilities, you know, it's a thing, the insurance just went up for Cortwood Village, and this is definitely a liability. It needs to be fixed. And I went to Jimmy because without going to Jimmy, this isn't getting done.
Jimmy can fix it, but he's asking for reimbursement from the housing authority. Can we give them approval for that, or does the housing authority board?
Well, we would be able to give.
You got to give
Tell him
Jim,
he can only do it if he gets reimbursement.
Are,
essentially.
are they asking,
Okay, I'm good
As
with
long as
that.
we know we're going to get reimbursed.
are they, well, that's what I
Can't
was gonna
spend
say.
it out of the
Well,
highway.
we can't do any work until we get something in writing from them.
Yeah, they gotta give us a check or give us a contract or something, some commitment.
all right, well, the good news is the meeting next Wednesday night,
Alright,
so.
So once they vote a
Right,
resolution to
once
pay
they
it.
voted, absolutely.
All right, so-
Once it-
proactive
And then,
work
Rob,
with
we're
it,
okay with this, this is legal to do, in terms
Well,
of doing it on that property?
You know, you're not supposed to do work for private places on a private person's residence. This is arguably town property.
Yes, it
An
is.
an emergency
So it's
situation.
okay.
Because the town is on the
It's
hook.
both town and
Yeah.
emergency.
The house-
Ultimately, it does come back to the town.
Yes,
So
it
we're good.
does.
Okay,
Okay,
so
thank you.
I'm gonna read something in here, and if this ends up being what everyone's okay with, resolved
Once the
that
check clears.
the
we're okay.
town board authorizes the highway department to perform culvert repairs, is it, culvert? Culvert repairs, catch basin repairs at Cortwood Village, pending, or to be reimbursed in full by Cortwood Village and the Housing Authority, pending the approval of said reimbursement by the Housing Authority. Does that work, Rob?
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Work on the exact language, that should be enough to vote on at least.
Yep.
I'm spitballing.
I make a,
Councilman Valentine with the motion, second from Councilman Troy, all in favor?
aye.
Great. Jeff, for the pay vouchers and the audit.
Okay, first I just wanted to touch on the Housing Authority because we've been talking about it.
We're doing an
The
audit.
bond that we refunded actually saved $3.1 million over the life of the bond, not the $500,000, so I wanted to make that very clear. Additionally, the $2.5 million of new money that they got essentially was free money. So they got $2.5 million to replace the boilers and do these infrastructure repairs. So, but my understanding as well is that they have to authorize this type of repair and pay us for it. So I wanted to make sure, for the record, that all of that was clear. In terms of the, well, before we get to the audit, I also wanted to make the board aware that we priced our bonds that were authorized in 2018. Today, we got a very good rate. Wells Fargo bid on it, and we got 3.03%. The last time we did issue bonds was over 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago. The rate then was a little over 2%, but the Fed has increased rates 6 times for a total of 1.5% since then. So in reality, if you look at it, the amount that our rates went up was less than by 50 basis points than what the Fed went up. So we went for an increase in our rating from AA2 to AA1. We did not get it. Moody's was very pleased with how our financials are improving, and they just want to see more evidence that it's continuing. So I just want to let the board be aware of that, and Wells Fargo is the investment bank that bought our bonds, and we should get the financing in 2 weeks when it closes.
Just to point out, we've been very good with our finances for the time I've been on this board, so it's not like we were.
AA1's a really good rating.
Yeah,
Like,
but so,
AA2
two is
is
a
very
is a
good,
phenomenal
really good
rating.
rating.
So
Yeah,
I
very hard
think
to
that's
get,
a little.
yeah.
Listen, we're very well off financially. Let's just correct that.
Well, I didn't say we weren't, Tom.
But you're-
what I'm saying is that it's very difficult to go from an AA2 to an AA1, and Moody's requires you, you know, the evidence is in the pudding because the market values our bonds. And look at the rating, the interest rate that we just got. So whether Moody's rates us as an AA2 or an AA1, we're getting better rates than AA1 rated bonds. So the rating agencies are notoriously slow for changing ratings. They wait till a company goes bankrupt before they downgrade the ratings. They really make you prove it on the upside, unless you're coming like the county was from the depths of despair. Then you make improvements there, they'll move you up. But when you're already at a very good rating, it's very difficult to get to that next highest rating. And just to keep in mind, on average, and a difference between an AA2 and an AA1 is only about 10 basis points. And that being said, again, we're getting better rates than some AA1s already, because the market looks at our financials and says, Moody's, they don't necessarily care what Moody's says, even though it is important and it's public, but the investors, the real investors, will dive all the way into our financial statements, and they will reward us for what has already been happening. And you've seen that every time we've issued bonds. We have tons of demand, and we get much better rates than any of the surrounding communities, and better than most AA2 communities, period. So
And there's also something to be said for Wells Fargo now doing it, a much bigger bank. It shows stronger interest by the part of the financial institutions, not just a smaller investment bank. So
exactly. Any other questions on the bond? Okay. So tonight's audit consists of 4 warrants for a total of $2.5 million. The first warrant had 3 vouchers for $185,000 and was for the applied golf contracts. The second warrant had 51 vouchers for $213,000 and was for utilities. The third warrant had 62 vouchers for $455,000 and was also for utilities. The fourth warrant had 426 vouchers for $1.7 million, items of interest. Number 6, Chestnut Ridge Transportation, $42,000 for camp buses. Number 10, CSEA Employee Benefit Fund, $31,000 for dental benefits. Number 13, Global Montello, $23,000 for fuel. Number 21, Department of Civil Service, $761,000 for CSEA Healthcare. Number 22, Optimum Controls, $140,000 for sewer telemetry project. Number 23, Peckham Road Corp., $102,000 for highway paving. Number 30, the State Comptroller, $67,000 for justice fines. And number 31, Tilcon, $24,000 for highway materials. Any questions on the audit?
questions? Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Troy. All in favor? All right, so we are going to have to go to executive session to discuss both personnel and, what was the other item? Property and sale of land. We do have several adjournments in memory of, first is Dr. Walter Askenes of Askenes Chiropractic. Then we have Sarah Morvay, who's the mother of one of our town employees, Robin Goldsmith. Then we also have John Quattrock Jr., the father-in-law of Rosanna Sfraja, our town clerk, and also Patricia Sheehan, our former Orangetown Police Department crossing guard of Pearl River, and the mother-in-law of our town attorney, Rob Magrino, Elizabeth Troop. All of these folks passed, and I know we also had Catherine Nowicki was brought to our attention by Esther Baitler. She was a town councilwoman from Clarkstown. Yes, she did a couple days ago, age 92. Former legislator and councilwoman in Clarkstown. Yeah. So I'm going to offer a motion to move to executive session, discuss personnel and property sale, and immediately thereafter adjourn in memory of these folks who we recently lost. Is there a second? Councilman Divney, all in favor? Thank you.